I started checking things without making it obvious. Not calling people, not asking direct questions, just paying attention to small details that did not line up. The first thing I did was look up the real estate company from the photo. Same logo, same colors, small office in the nearest town by the lake. Not a big agency, local. The kind that knows every property in that area. I did not call them. Not yet. I pulled up their website instead. Listings, recent sales, agent names. Nothing showed up under the cabin address. That did not mean anything. A lot of deals never make it to public listings, especially if someone is trying to move fast. Then I checked something else. County records. It is public information. Anyone can access it if they know where to look. Ownership had not changed. That part made sense. If they were mid-sale, it would not reflect yet. But there was something else. A recent activity flag. Not a transfer, not a finalized change, but something had been filed recently. That was enough to confirm one thing. This was not hypothetical. I kept my routine exactly the same on base. Same schedule, same training, same conversations with people around me. No one would have guessed anything was off. That is something the Army teaches you fast. You do not let personal problems leak into your performance. You compartmentalize. You deal with what is in front of you. But when you are off duty, your brain does not shut off. It redirects. A few days later, I got another message. Same number. People have been coming by. Look serious. No name again. It did not matter. Small towns do not stay quiet when something changes. Especially not lakefront property. Someone always notices. I zoomed in on the original photo again. This time I focused on the details I had ignored before. Fresh tire tracks near the driveway. The porch had been swept. Even the railing looked cleaner than I remembered. That was not random. That was prep. I called home again. My mom answered this time. Her tone was calm, like nothing had changed. "How's everything going?" she asked. Normal conversation, like we were catching up. Like there was not a sign in front of a property she had no legal authority to sell. "I need the agent's name," I said. A pause. "Why?" "I'm asking once." Another pause. Longer this time. "We're still figuring things out," she said. "There's no need for you to get involved." Get involved? That was new. "It's my property," I said. "It's family property," she corrected. That word, family, used like it automatically erased ownership. I did not argue. "That's not what I asked," I said. "Send me the agent's information. We'll talk about it when you're home." That sentence again. Delay. Deflect. Push it to a time when they have more control over the conversation. "I'm not asking when I get home," I said. "I'm asking now." Silence. "Then you're overreacting," she said. "Nothing's been finalized." That word again. Finalized. People do not keep repeating the same word unless they are trying to anchor the situation around it. Like if it is not finalized, then it is not real. But that is not how transactions work. There is a process. And they were already in it. The call ended the same way the last one did. No answers. Just softer versions of the same lines. That night, I sat with someone from my unit in the common area. Older. Been in longer. The kind of person who does not talk much unless there is a reason. He noticed I was distracted. Did not ask directly. Just said, "Something off?" I gave him a simplified version. No details about the property. Just enough to explain the situation. Family doing something without telling me. Possible financial move. Unclear legal standing. He did not react emotionally. Just listened. Then he asked one question. "Do they actually have the authority?" "I don't think so," I said. He looked at me for a second. "Don't think, or don't know. There's a difference." "I don't know yet." He nodded. "Then don't fight them," he said. "Figure out what's real first." That was it. No advice about confronting them. No suggestions about what to say. Just that. Figure out what is real first. That was when I realized something. I had been reacting to what they were saying, not what they were doing. The next morning, I started pulling everything I could find related to the cabin. Old messages, emails, photos, anything with timestamps. I found a picture from a few months back. Same porch, no sign, no cleaned railing, no tire tracks. That narrowed the window. Whatever they were doing had started recently. Then I found something else. A message from my dad that I had not thought much about at the time. "Going to check on the cabin this weekend. Might have someone come take a look." That was it. No context. At the time, it sounded normal. Now, it did not. I went back to the county records and looked closer. The activity flag had a reference number attached to it. Not obvious. Just a small line of text most people would not notice. I copied it and ran it through the system. It linked to a filing. Not a transfer. Not yet. But it was connected to a preliminary document, something used in the early stages of a sale. They were not just thinking about selling. They had already started the process. I leaned back in my chair and looked at everything laid out in front of me. The photo, the messages, the filings, the timing. It all pointed in one direction. They did not forget to tell me. They chose not to. And the more I looked at it, the clearer it became. This was not something they planned to discuss. It was something they planned to finish. I opened the photo one more time. Same sign, same placement, deliberate. At that point, one thing became obvious. They were moving forward whether I was involved or not. I copied that reference number into the county system again and kept digging until the screen stopped loading new information. It did not take long to find what I needed. The filing was not hidden. It was just buried in a place most people would not think to check unless they knew exactly what they were looking for. Preliminary transfer activity tied to the property, not ownership, not yet. But something tied to a transaction in motion. I stared at it for a few seconds, letting it settle in. This was not a misunderstanding. It was not a "we're just exploring options" situation. They had already stepped into the process. I opened another tab and searched the property address again, this time adding the agent's company name. Nothing public. That confirmed something else. This was not a standard listing. It was being handled quietly, off-market. That usually means one thing. They already had a buyer. I leaned forward and checked the timestamp on the filing again, 3 days ago. That lined up with the message from the neighbor, which meant people had already been walking the property before I even knew it was happening. I pulled up my messages with my dad again and scrolled back to the one where he said someone might take a look. The timing did not match. That message came before the filing, which meant he was not giving me a heads up. He was giving me a version of the story after things had already started. That was when the last piece clicked. They were not waiting to see if I would agree. They were waiting to see if I would notice. I sat there for a while, not moving. In the army, there is a point where a situation stops being unclear, where all the small uncertainties line up into something you can actually act on. This was that point. I picked up my phone and called the number from the real estate company, not the office. The direct line listed under one of the agents. It rang twice. A man answered. "Hello?" I did not introduce myself right away. "I'm calling about a property near Cedar Lake," I said. "I believe you've been working on it recently." A short pause. "We handle a lot of properties," he said carefully. "Do you have an address?" I gave it to him. Another pause. Longer this time. "I can't discuss details of a listing without authorization," he said. That was not a no. That was a deflection. "I'm not asking for details," I said. "I'm asking if you're involved." Silence. Then, "I'd need to know who I'm speaking with." Fair. I gave him my name. Everything shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. "Right," he said. "I think it would be best if you spoke with your parents about this." That told me everything I needed. He knew exactly who I was. "Are they under contract?" I asked. "I'm not authorized to discuss the status of any agreements." That was a yes. People do not say that unless there is something to protect. I did not push further. There was no point. I hung up and sat there, phone still in my hand. Contract. Buyer. Escrow likely already in motion. That is how these things work. You do not get to just explore options at that stage. You are already committed. I opened my laptop again and went back to the county site. This time, I was not just looking at the property. I was looking at the timeline. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. They were moving fast. Which meant one thing. There was a deadline. I called the law office number from my grandmother's card, the same one I had seen years ago and never used. A receptionist answered. I gave my name. There was a short hold. Then another voice came on. Older. Steady. He did not waste time. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said. That was not what I expected. I did not react to it. "I need to know what my parents can legally do with that property," I said. Another pause. "Before I answer that," he said, "I need to confirm something. You haven't signed anything recently, correct?" "No." "Good." The way he said it was not casual. He asked me a few quick questions. Name. Date of birth. Confirmation of my grandparents. Then he said something that shifted the entire situation again. "Your grandparents didn't leave that property through a standard estate," he said. "It was placed into a trust several years ago." I did not respond right away. I knew what a trust was. I just did not know what kind. "Am I the beneficiary?" I asked. "You are the sole beneficiary," he said. That part was clear. But there was something in his tone that told me there was more to it. "Then how are they trying to sell it?" I asked. "They shouldn't be able to," he said. "Not legally." "Should not." Not cannot. There are structures in place that determine when full control transfers to you, he continued. Until certain conditions are met, others may have limited administrative access. There it was. A gap. Not ownership, but access. So they can initiate something? I asked. They can attempt to, he said carefully. But they cannot complete a lawful transfer of ownership without proper authority. Attempt. That matched everything I had seen. Then why hasn't anything stopped them yet? I asked. Because the system doesn't stop attempts, he said. It stops completions. That was the clearest answer I had gotten all day. I leaned back and let that settle. They were moving forward because nothing had blocked them yet. Not because they had the right, because no one had formally stopped them. There's one more thing you need to understand, he said. I waited. The trust includes a final confirmation document, he continued. A document that formally establishes your full control once executed. I did not say anything. It was prepared in advance, he added. By your grandparents. That part hit differently. Not emotionally. Strategically. If that document is not filed before a transaction progresses far enough, he said, you may still retain ownership, but reversing the situation becomes more complicated. More complicated. Not impossible, but not clean. Where's that document, I asked. With us, he said, waiting for your signature. I looked at the screen in front of me again, the filing, the timeline, the contract I could not see but knew existed. Is there a closing date? I asked. There was a brief pause. Yes, soon. Yes, soon. That was all I needed. I closed the laptop slowly, not because I was overwhelmed, but because everything had just become very simple. They had already started the sale. They had a buyer. They were moving toward closing, and the only thing standing between them finishing it was a piece of paper I had not signed yet. I picked up my phone again and checked the date. Then I checked my schedule. Then I looked at the map. Distance. Time. Options. There is a moment in every situation where it stops being about understanding and starts being about timing. This was that moment. And for the first time since I saw that sign, I was not reacting anymore. I was planning. I opened my calendar and started moving things around without explaining why. Leave request approved. Travel window tight but possible. I did not call my parents. Not because I did not want to, because there was nothing left to say that would change what they were doing. In the army, once you know the situation, you do not waste time arguing with it. You work around it. The law office was exactly where I remembered it. Same building. Same quiet street. Same kind of place you would walk past without noticing, unless you had a reason to go in. Inside, nothing had changed much either. No flashy decor, no attempt to impress, just files, desks, and people who looked like they dealt with real problems every day. The attorney met me in person this time. He did not start with small talk. He slid a folder across the desk and opened it like we were continuing a conversation that had been paused years ago. This was set up 6 years ago, he said. I looked down at the documents. Trust agreement, asset list, conditions. The cabin was there, so were accounts I did not even know existed. Your grandparents were very specific, he continued. They didn't want this property going through probate. They wanted control to stay clean. Clean meaning no disputes, no confusion, no opportunity for someone to step in and reinterpret their intentions. Then why isn't this already under my control? I asked. He nodded like he expected that question. Because they also knew you were young, he said. They built in a structure that delays full control until certain conditions are met. I flipped through the pages. There it was. A clause clear enough to understand, but written in a way that made it easy to overlook if you did not know what you were reading. You were always the beneficiary, he said, but administrative authority was temporarily shared. Shared with who? Your parents. That part did not surprise me. It explained everything. Access without ownership. Just enough control to manage things, and just enough opportunity to push it further if no one stopped them. They were never meant to sell it, I said. No, he replied. They were meant to maintain it. Maintain. That word again, same one my grandfather used. Very different meaning depending on who was saying it. I kept reading. Dates, conditions, language that defined exactly when control would fully transfer to me. Most of it had already been met. Age, status, time. All of it lined up except for one thing. The final confirmation. I said. He nodded. That's the last step, he said. It formalizes what has already been established. And without it, you're still the beneficiary, but control isn't fully enforced. That was the gap. The exact space my parents were operating in. They're already in contract, I said. I assumed as much, he replied. You knew? I've seen this before. That did not feel reassuring. They can't legally complete the sale, he continued, but if it progresses far enough, unwinding it becomes inconvenient. Inconvenient! That was how he described a situation that could turn into months of legal cleanup. I leaned back slightly and looked at the document again. It did not look like much. Just a few pages, signatures, dates, formal language, but it carried more weight than anything else in the room. This is the one thing they don't know about, I said. Correct. And once I sign it, it closes the gap. Yes. I ran through the timeline in my head. Contract likely signed. Buyer involved. Closing scheduled. Money waiting. How close are they? I asked. He checked something on his screen. Soon enough that timing matters, he said. That was all I needed. I did not reach for the pen right away. Not because I was unsure. Because timing was not just about doing something. It was about doing it at the right moment. If I sign this now, I said, what happens? It gets filed, he said. Ownership control updates. Any pending transaction without proper authority gets flagged. Flagged. Stopped. And if I wait, they continue moving forward until something forces a stop. I sat there for a second looking at both options. Sign now or wait. In the army, you do not rush a move just because you can. You wait until it has the most impact. They think they're close, don't they? I asked. That is usually when people move the fastest, he replied. I nodded slightly. That matched everything I had seen. They were not slowing down. They were accelerating. I closed the folder halfway. Do they know you're involved? I asked. No, he said, and I haven't been contacted by them. That meant they were working through someone else. Realtor. Buyer. Possibly another attorney. But not this one. Not the one tied to the trust. I stood up and walked toward the window for a second. Outside, nothing looked urgent. Cars passed. People walked by like it was a normal day. Which it was, just not for me. When is the latest I can sign this? I asked. He gave me a direct answer. Before closing. No buffer. No safety margin. Just a line. I turned back to the desk. The document was still there, unchanged, waiting. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A message from my sister. We're all getting together this weekend. You should come. No mention of the cabin. No mention of the sale. Just normal. I looked at it for a second, then locked the screen. They're acting like nothing's happening, I said. That's common, he replied. It's easier to finish something when no one challenges it. I picked up the pen, then put it back down. If I sign this, I said, I don't want any confusion about what happens next. There won't be, he said. I closed the folder completely this time, not because I was done with it, because I had what I needed. Timing was not a guess anymore. It was a decision. I thanked him, took the folder copy he gave me, and walked out. Back in the car, I did not start the engine right away. I just sat there going over everything one more time. The contract, the filing, the gap, the document. It was not complicated anymore. They were moving toward closing, and I had the only thing that could stop it. The question was not whether I would use it. It was when. I folded the copy of the document and placed it in the folder like it was just another piece of paperwork. From the outside, nothing about me looked different. No urgency, no panic, no visible reaction. That part was not natural. That part was trained. I drove straight back to base that same day. Did not stop anywhere. Did not call anyone. Did not even play music in the car. Just silence and distance. Because once you have the information, the worst thing you can do is react too early. Back on base, everything picked up exactly where I left it. Same routine. Same expectations. Morning formation. Training blocks. Reports. No one cared that somewhere a property with my name tied to it was being sold without my permission. And honestly, that helped. Because it forced me to stay grounded in something that made sense. That night, I sat down and wrote everything out again. Not emotionally. Structurally. Timeline. First message from neighbor. Photo of the sign. Calls with my parents. County filing. Confirmation of contract. Meeting with the attorney. Existence of the final document. Estimated closing window. Everything went on the page in order. Then I added one more column. What they knew. And what they did not. They knew I was away. They knew I had not confronted them directly. They knew the process was already in motion. They did not know I had seen the filing. They did not know I had spoken to the agent. They did not know I had confirmed the trust. They did not know I had access to the final document. That imbalance mattered. In the Army, information is not just something you collect. It is something you control, and once you lose control of it, you lose leverage. I did not tell anyone what I found. Not my parents, not my sister, not even the person who had texted me. Because the moment they know what you know, they change how they move. The next step was not action, it was positioning. I checked the closing timelines again. Most residential deals follow a pattern. Offer, acceptance, escrow, inspection, finalization. Depending on how fast they were pushing, it could be a few weeks or less. Given how quiet they were trying to keep it, I assumed less. I made one more call the next day. Not to my parents, to the county office. General inquiry. Nothing specific that would raise flags. I asked about processing times for ownership updates. Routine question. Routine answer. Same-day filing for priority documents. That was enough. Same day, meaning once that document went in, the system would reflect it immediately. No lag. No gray area. I went back to my notes and adjusted the timeline. Closing date. Submission window. Response time. Everything lined up tighter than before. The mistake people make in situations like this is thinking the biggest move wins. It does not. The right move at the right time wins. I kept going through my normal schedule. Training, meetings, reports. No changes, no sudden requests, no signs that anything was different. My sister called that evening. I let it ring once, then answered. Her tone was light. "You coming this weekend?" she asked. I did not ask what it was for. I already knew. "Maybe," I said. "You should," she added. "It's important. Important." That word does not get used casually in our family. Not unless there is something behind it. "Important how?" I asked. A pause. "Then you'll see." That was her version of not saying anything. I kept my tone neutral. "Send me the time." "I will." Call ended. That told me something else. They were not hiding everything. They were staging it. I checked the date. Weekend. That lined up too cleanly with a closing window. Family gathering announcement. Everything wrapped up at once. I updated the timeline again. Added one more line. Public confirmation. The next morning, I went through training like any other day. Nothing felt different, but everything was. There is a point in any operation where you stop gathering and start preparing. Not acting yet, preparing. I reviewed the document again that night. Every line, every clause, every signature that would be required. There were no surprises left in it, no hidden conditions, no extra steps, just one requirement. Mine. I placed it back in the folder and set it aside. Not in a drawer, not hidden, just within reach. Because at that point, the situation had narrowed down to something very simple. They were moving toward closing. They believed they had control. They believed I was out of the loop. And I had something they did not even know existed. I checked my leave again, confirmed the window, confirmed travel. No conflicts, everything was in place. Not because I rushed it, because I let it line up. The difference between reacting and controlling a situation is timing. And for the first time since I saw that sign, I was not trying to catch up anymore. I was deciding when it ended. I pulled into the driveway just before noon and parked like I had done 100 times before. Nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. From the outside, it looked like any normal weekend at my parents' house. Cars in the driveway. Front door open. Voices inside. If you did not know better, you would think this was just a family get-together. Which, in a way, it was. I walked in without knocking. My mom was in the kitchen. My sister was already there, scrolling through her phone like nothing unusual was happening. My dad was at the table with a folder in front of him. Not just any folder. The kind people bring out when they want something to feel official. Everyone looked up at the same time. There was a split second where no one said anything. Then my mom smiled. "You made it," she said, like this had always been the plan. I set my bag down near the door and walked in slowly. No tension in my voice. No rush in my steps. "Yeah," I said. "Figured I should be here." That part was not a lie. My dad closed the folder halfway when I got closer. Not completely. Just enough. "We were just about to go over a few things," he said. "About the cabin?" I asked. He did not hesitate. "Yeah." Straight answer. Confident like there was nothing left to question. My sister looked up for a second. "This is actually good timing," she said. "It'll be easier if we're all on the same page." Same page. That phrase only works when everyone actually agreed to read the same thing. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Let's hear it," I said. My dad opened the folder again, this time fully. Papers stacked neatly. Printed documents. Numbers highlighted. He started talking like he had rehearsed it. Market value. Recent sales. demand in the area. All of it sounded clean, logical, reasonable. "We got a strong offer," he said. "Better than we expected." Of course they did. That is how it always starts. "It makes sense to move forward," he added. "We've already taken the initial steps." Initial steps. That phrase again, carefully chosen. I let him talk. Did not interrupt, did not challenge anything yet. Because the more he explained, the clearer the picture became. My mom stepped in, halfway through. "We're not doing this against you," she said. "We're doing this for the family." There it was. Exactly where I expected it. I looked at the papers in front of him. "Are you under contract?" I asked. My dad did not answer right away. He glanced at my mom for half a second, then back at me. "We've agreed in principle," he said. That was a yes. "Is there a closing date?" I asked. Another pause. "Soon," he said. Not a number. Not a date. Just enough to avoid specifics. I nodded slightly, then leaned back in the chair. "Who's the buyer?" I asked. "That's not important," my mom said quickly. It was important, which was why she did not want to answer. My sister shifted in her seat. "It's a good deal," she said. "Like really good." Of course she thought that. She was not the one losing anything. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I said it. "You don't have the authority to sell that property." No one spoke immediately. Then my dad leaned forward slightly. "We're your parents," he said again, like that explained everything. "It doesn't," I replied. My mom's tone changed. Not louder, just sharper. "You've been gone," she said. "You don't understand how things work here." I almost smiled at that, because I understood exactly how things worked. "I understand more than you think," I said. My dad closed the folder again, this time fully. "We're past the point of debating this," he said. "It's already in motion." That part was true, just not in the way he thought. I reached into my bag and pulled out my folder, set it on the table, did not open it yet. "You're right," I said. "It is in motion." That got their attention. My mom frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" I opened the folder slowly and turned it so they could see. "Not everything, just enough." "The property isn't part of your estate," I said. "It hasn't been for years." My dad shook his head immediately. "That's not correct." "It is," I said. "It's held in a trust." Silence. My sister looked confused. "What trust?" she asked. I did not answer her. I was watching my dad, because he was not confused. He was calculating. "That doesn't change anything," he said. It did. He just did not know how much yet. "There's a final document tied to that trust," I said. "One that determines control." My mom leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" I looked at both of them, then said it clearly. "You never had the authority to sell it." That was when things shifted. Not emotionally, structurally. My dad sat back slightly like he was reassessing the situation in real time. "You're mistaken," he said. "We've already—" His phone rang. He glanced at it, annoyed, then saw the name. Everything changed. He picked it up immediately. "Yeah," he said. Pause. "No, that doesn't make sense." Another pause, longer. "What do you mean it's flagged?" My mom looked at him, confused. "What is it?" He did not answer her. He was listening, and whatever he was hearing was not what he expected. "No," he said. "That shouldn't—" He stopped. Then he looked at me. Not angry, not yet, just trying to connect something he did not fully understand. "Hold on," he said into the phone, then to me. "What did you do?" I did not raise my voice, did not change my tone. "I fixed it," I said. He went back to the call. "What exactly is the issue?" he asked. More silence, more listening. "The ownership doesn't match," he repeated. That was it. The room went quiet in a way that did not need explanation. My mom leaned forward again. "What does that mean?" she asked. My dad did not answer right away, because for the first time he did not have one. "The title's been updated," he said finally. I watched it register slowly. "Updated how?" my mom asked. He looked at me again, longer this time. And that was when he understood. Not everything, but enough. The deal was not moving forward. Not because of an argument, not because of a disagreement, because something in the system had changed. And there was nothing he could say to reverse it in that moment. The rest of the call did not matter. The outcome already did. When he hung up, no one spoke. My sister was the first to break the silence. "What just happened?" she asked. My dad did not answer her. He was still looking at me. And for the first time since I walked in, he did not look like he was in control of the situation anymore. Not even close. I picked up my folder and closed it without rushing, like the conversation had already gone exactly where it needed to go. No one tried to stop me, not because they agreed, because they did not know how. My mom was the first one to speak again. "You went behind our backs." That almost made me laugh. Not out loud, just enough to feel the irony. "I protected what's mine," I said. "That's not how families work," she replied. That sentence landed differently now than it would have a week earlier, because now I knew exactly what she meant by family. Family to them meant access. It meant assumption. It meant they could decide first and explain later. To me, it meant something else, something a lot quieter. My dad finally leaned back in his chair, not relaxed, just recalibrating. "You should have talked to us," he said. "I did," I replied. "You just didn't tell me the truth." That shut the conversation down faster than anything else. Not because it was aggressive, because it was accurate. No one denied it. They did not argue that they had been transparent. They did not claim they tried to include me, because they had not. My sister shook her head slightly. "This didn't have to turn into this," she said. "That part always comes after, when the plan does not work. Suddenly, it is about how things could have been handled differently." I stood up from the table. Not dramatically, just done sitting there. "For you, maybe," I said. For me, it already had. No one followed me when I walked toward the door. No one tried to fix it. No one asked what came next. Because for the first time, there was not a version of the situation where they controlled the outcome. Outside, the air felt the same as when I arrived. Quiet, normal, like nothing had just shifted. I got in the car and sat there for a second before starting the engine, not thinking about what I had just done, thinking about what it actually meant. Because here is the part people do not talk about in stories like this. The moment where everything works out does not feel like a win. It feels like clarity. You see people for exactly who they are. Not who you thought they were, not who they told you they were, but who they become when something valuable is involved. And once you see it, you do not unsee it. I drove out to the cabin that afternoon. Did not tell anyone I was going. Did not need to. The sign was still there, same spot, same angle. I walked up to it and pulled it out of the ground. No hesitation, no second thought. Set it down by the porch. The place looked exactly like it had in the photo, but standing there in person, it felt different. Not safer, settled. I walked inside and did what I always did. Checked everything. Windows, doors, small things that most people ignore. Not because I thought something had changed, because that was what my grandfather taught me. You do not wait for something to break. You make sure it does not. I sat on the porch for a while after that. Same chair. Still creaked. Still leaned slightly to one side. The lake was quiet. No movement except for the light shifting across the surface. That was when everything finally slowed down. Not the situation, just my reaction to it. Because up until that point, everything had been about stopping something from happening. Now, it was about understanding why it happened at all. People like to think betrayal comes from anger, or conflict, or some big moment where everything explodes. It does not. Most of the time, it comes from something quieter. Assumption. The assumption that you will not push back. The assumption that you will not notice. The assumption that you will eventually agree. That was what this was. Not a plan built on conflict. A plan built on confidence. Confidence that I would not challenge it, and if I am being honest, that part made sense, because for a long time I did not. I let things go, ignored small comments, did not question decisions that did not quite sit right. Not because I agreed, because it felt easier. That is how these situations build. Not all at once, piece by piece, until one day you look at it and realize the decision has already been made without you. That is when it stops being about family and starts being about control. I leaned back in the chair and looked out at the water. Same view, same place. But the way I saw it had changed. Because this was not just about a cabin or money or a piece of land. It was about something a lot more practical than that. Knowing exactly what belongs to you. And being willing to protect it, even when the people on the other side of that decision share your last name. That is not something anyone teaches you growing up. You figure it out when you need it. And by the time you do, it usually costs you something. Sometimes it is money. Sometimes it is trust. In this case, it was both. I stayed there until the sun started dropping behind the trees. No rush to leave. No need to explain anything to anyone. Because for the first time in a long time, nothing about the situation felt uncertain. Not even close. I sat with this story for a long time after hearing it, and the more I thought about it, the clearer something became. This was not really about a cabin. It was not even about money. It was about something a lot more common and a lot more uncomfortable to admit. It was about how easily people confuse family with safety, and how dangerous that assumption can be. A lot of revenge stories make things look dramatic. Loud arguments, big confrontations, clear villains. But real family stories do not usually look like that. They look quiet. They look reasonable. They sound like, "We're doing this for you." They sound like, "You don't need to worry about this." They sound like decisions being made in rooms you were not invited into about things that absolutely involve you. That is what makes family conflict so complicated. Because it does not feel like conflict at first. It feels like trust. And that is the part that stays with me the most about this story. Ava did not almost lose everything because she was careless. She almost lost it because she trusted the wrong assumption. The idea that the people closest to you will always act in your best interest. That sounds good. It just is not always true. The truth is, people act based on what they believe makes sense to them. Sometimes that lines up with you. Sometimes it does not. And when money, property, or control enters the picture, people change faster than most of us are ready for. Not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it is subtle. A shift in language. A decision made for the family. A conversation that happens without you. And by the time it becomes obvious, the situation is already moving. What made this story different from a lot of other revenge stories is how it was handled. There was no yelling. No dramatic confrontation. No moment where someone slammed a door or made a speech. It was quiet. Controlled. Precise. That is not accidental. That is a skill. In the real world, especially in situations involving family and legal ownership, reacting emotionally is usually the fastest way to lose control. Because the moment you react, you show your position, you show what you know, and you give the other side time to adjust. Ava did not do that. She did not argue. She did not try to convince anyone. She focused on one thing, understanding what was actually real, and that is the first lesson here. Before you respond to anything, make sure you actually know what is happening. Not what you have been told. Not what it looks like. What is documented. What is filed. What is real. Because in situations like this, reality is not based on conversation. It is based on records. The second lesson is something most people do not want to hear. If something belongs to you, it is your responsibility to understand it. Not just emotionally. Legally. It does not matter if it is a house, land, money, or anything else with real value. If your name is tied to it, you need to know exactly how, who has access, who has authority, what can be done without you, and what cannot. That is not being paranoid. That is being prepared. A lot of people avoid that because it feels uncomfortable. It feels like you are questioning your own family. It feels like you are creating tension where there is not any. But the reality is, clarity does not create problems. It exposes them. And if something falls apart when you ask basic questions, it was not stable to begin with. The third lesson is about timing. This is where most people get it wrong. They either react too early or too late. Too early, and you reveal everything before it matters. Too late, and you are trying to fix something that has already been finalized. Ava did not rush. She did not delay. She waited until the moment her action would actually change the outcome. That is not luck. That is discipline. And that is something that applies far beyond this situation. Whether it is business, relationships, or anything involving decisions that affect your future, timing matters just as much as the decision itself. Another thing that stood out to me is how calm everything stayed. Not because it was not serious, but because it did not need to be loud. A lot of people think power looks like control over others. It does not. Real power is control over your own actions, your own responses, your own timing. That is what this story really shows. Not just that someone stopped something from happening, but how they did it. No drama, no performance, just a clear understanding of the situation and the right move at the right time. And maybe the most uncomfortable lesson in all of this is this. Family does not automatically mean alignment. You can love people and still recognize that they do not see things the way you do. You can care about them and still set boundaries. You can share a last name and still protect what is yours. That does not make you cold. It makes you aware. Because the alternative is hoping things work out in your favor without actually knowing. And hope is not a strategy. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Pay attention to what is yours, not just in a financial sense, in a practical sense. Understand it, protect it, and do not assume that someone else will do that for you, even if they say they will. Because at the end of the day, the people who stay in control of their lives are not the ones who trust blindly. They are the ones who verify quietly. That is what separates a difficult situation from a permanent loss. Stories like this stay with people for a reason, not because they are extreme, because they are possible. This kind of situation does not require bad people, just the wrong decisions made at the wrong time by people who think they are justified. And that is what makes family conflict so real. This was not just about revenge. It was about awareness, about control, and about knowing when to step in before something is taken out of your hands. When something is yours, understand it clearly, protect it early, and never confuse silence with safety.